Brian Staten, project manager at Robust Haven, and we designed the transmission control shift module. This is LeBlanc Meneses, our programmer, and then back here we have Jason Sher, the designer and creator of the PCB board, and also helped me integrate all the hardware.
In this demo, I'm going to demonstrate 3 ways our desktop application communicates to our transmission control module. The first one is I'm going to talk about is diagnostics. This is a way we were able to debug our code when it was flashed on our controller. So it describes what inputs it's currently detecting and what outputs it's sending out. Now we're sending a query over a serial cable to our transmission module every 10 seconds. You can see that it lights up whenever the laptop requests or queries the controller for the new inputs and outputs. Notice that turned orange again. It turns off. So every 10 seconds we basically send a new query. Hey, what are your inputs? What's your outputs? The way it's received back is through an XML file where the root elements are inputs and the next root element is outputs. And the child elements for inputs is a pressure switch assembly, which you can see here. The speed, which is controlled through this guy here. The toggle, which is this here. The brake. The next element is the temperature, which is this. And the distributor, which is another function generator up here. So I'm going to demonstrate speed, which is the second element. And right now we are displaying that it's at 70 Hertz. And you can see that this is 70 Hertz on the function generator. If we slightly increase that to, let's say, 1K, just type it in, 1 kilohertz. And then we wait till it queries the controller. And we can see that it's at basically 1K, as we see here. Basically, the speed is that element is comma delimited. It has miles per hour, RPMs, and then the actual frequency in hertz. So the next thing I'm going to demonstrate is a throttle position, which is this power supply here. It basically, the range is 0 is 0, 5 volts is 100%, and I display in the application the percentage that is currently loaded. I might just go full throttle and notice that it's over 5 volts and not burning my controller because it goes through signal conditioning. So basically that should be 100%, and if we look at our application, you notice that they just changed to 100% there. The next thing I'm going to demonstrate is the temperature. This goes from 320 to about negative 40. So I'm going to put it in that range somewhere in the negatives. That should be around negative value. And let's wait till this updates. And yes, it's negative 25 right now. That's what our controller is reading. Now the next is the brake, which is just a Boolean value. Just turned it off. I'm going to make sure that this does toggle off. Let's wait for it to reboot. And you notice that it turned off. The next thing I'm going to show is the distributor. Basically, again, because it's being calculated to RPMs, I can only show that it increases and then it decreases. So we're going to increase the value on the distributor. And it increased. Okay, so let's decrease to 100 Hertz. And there you see that we did decrease. There you go. That's enough diagnostics. The next thing I'm going to show is retrieving a configuration file from the controller. The user can select which one is running by simply using the toggle. One is for street, and the bottom one is for towing. Something like that. So let's see what is currently running right now. Let's fetch it. Get configuration file again. Communicate over serial. You notice we get XML file that has all the controls in our application, all the shift points. Basically, you see 3 shift point elements with about 20 floating point values across. Basically, the first 10 is for the upshift line, the second 10 are for the downshift line, and you have 3 of them for going from gear 1 to gear 2, from gear 2 to gear 3, from gear 3 to gear 4. That's why there's 3 elements, and you have 4 elements for line pressure because you can control line pressure for gear 1, for gear 2, for gear 3, and for gear 4. That's why there's 4 elements with 10 points each. These could eventually repopulate all the controls to this, but I'm just currently putting it into a message box. And please notice the 2.96 under system setups. And let's toggle it. I mean, that's not the only value that changes, but just to demonstrate that it is getting switched, that's an easy number to see in that whole document. I just toggled the switch, which loads the other configuration file, and let's see that change. And our 2.96 is now 8.22, so it did make the switch, and the new configuration file is running on that controller by toggling it. Now, say the user doesn't want to use any of the presets, say they want to load their own. The way they go about doing that is the put command. It basically gets all the values on the controls, sends it out to the controller, and this gets parsed on the controller, and simply using our application, changing the shift point graphs, the line pressure graphs. Let's change this first one to about, what is it? We should see 705. So now I'm going to demonstrate put, because we're going to put all these values that we just changed into this our controller. So we're putting the configuration file, and this is sending an XML document to the transmission control module, which gets parsed, and the new user settings. Let's fetch it. Remember, this should be the exact values we have on all the controls. And let's look at vehicle setup. Notice that that is 5.4, and if we do have a 5.4 returned back from the controller, we have 49 exact values for system setup. Remember I said that this was going to be 702 because I'm sending frequency out so that the controller doesn't have to do any extra calculations. We just send what frequency it should change on. So this has successfully sent new parameters to the controller, and which runs the transmission with those new parameters, and we retrieve them back. So I've demonstrated diagnostics, which allows us to debug by seeing all the inputs and the outputs being sent by the transmission control module. We've retrieved user settings, and we've put user settings. Those are 3 operations we currently have fully functioning in our prototype.